2.7. So today I want to talk about different ways you can write linear functions as equations. And some of these names have special, or some of these ways that you can write these equations have special names. And so the first one, which is the most common way to write a linear equation or a linear function, is y equals mx plus b. This is called the slope-intercept form, and it's because it's the easiest way to identify the slope, which we know slope is identified as, we call it m, and this is why, because of this format right here, m, and the intercept, we'll get into the intercept, which intercept it is going to be the b. And the x and the y, you know, are the input and the output. The second most common form, which we are going to also get into today, is the point slope form. And the point slope also has m here. You can see the slope. And the point is going to be this x1 and y1. That's going to be if you had a point, say 3, 2. Well, for the x1, instead of having x1 here, you'd have 3. And for the y1, instead of having y1, you'd have 2. And then you have a number where the slope is, but you still would have your x and your y as your variables, your input and your output. Okay. So then there's the general form, ax plus by plus c equals 0. This is used when you're asked to find the zeros of something, zeros of an equation. It's also helpful sometimes for graphing. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. Used as a function, you know, we're just going to put fx in the place of y. An identity function is when the line or the function y equals x. Remember, that's going to be the one that's at an exactly 45-degree diagonal angle. A constant function is when y equals a number, any real number, and that's going to be a horizontal line. Whew, that looks more like a curve than a line, but it's going to be a horizontal line. A vertical line is where x equals n, where n is any real number. And this is going to be a vertical line. Now, this one is an equation because it has an equal sign here, but it is not a function because it does not pass the vertical line test or even the definition of a function. If you have an input, you're going to have an unlimited number of outputs. There's unlimited amount of y's that you get when you put in an n, whatever the n is that creates this line. Okay, so there's different types of ways of writing equations, and not all of them are functions, but those are different linear equations. So the first one that I want to look at today, which is the main one, is going to be the slope-intercept form. This is the y equals mx plus b form. And we see that I already told you m is the slope. That means the coefficient of x. Now, it's not going to say m when you have an equation. It's going to say something like f of x is 2x plus 3. In that case, the coefficient of the variable is m. Okay, so it could also even be out of order. You can have, let's say, g of m is 3 plus 2x. Okay, well, this is out of order, but it's still the coefficient of the variable is the slope. Okay, now b is the constant, in this case 3. Okay, so b is the always going to be the constant, and the constant is the y value of the y-intercept. Remember, a y-intercept is an ordered pair, and so the y value is whatever b is. What is the x value? X value is always 0. When you're looking for the y-intercept, x is 0 because that's just because of remember, it's when it crosses the line, it's not moving to the right or the left at all. It's only moving up and down. So x is 0. When you're looking for the y-intercept, you're looking for what goes in the y spot. And if you have this formula, it's going to be whatever the constant is, which is known as the B spot. So that's what you would put here in the Y. All right, so let's look at this. If this format is used to easily find the slope, the y-intercept, any line that's written in this format. It's also used to be helpful in graphing linear equations, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Oh, there it is. All right, so here we have an example, y equals 2x plus 3. Oh, that's the same one I was talking about. So I want to know what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. Well, the slope in this case is 2. M equals 2. The y-intercept is 0, 3. Okay. We have the answers written here as well for you so you can see those. So now you should be able to pause and do all of these on your own. There's 6 equations. It should take you less than 6 minutes. Just pause, write down all your answers in your notes, and then unpause and we'll go over it. All right, welcome back. So here, remember, I'm going to write up here, our slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y of the y-intercept. Okay, so here we have y equals -1 plus 3x. Well, we see this isn't in the proper format, but we know that m is always the coefficient to the variable. So in this case, our m is 3. So our slope is 3. Now remember, slope always has 2 parts, rise and run. So we have to think of this, even though this is a whole number, let's think of it as a fraction. Our rise is 3. Well, what is our run, our horizontal change? Well, 3 written as a fraction is going to be 3 over 1. So this is a rise of 3 and a run of 1, or horizontal change of 1. Okay, so m equals 3. So what is our y-intercept? Our y-intercept is going to be 0 for the x. And what is our y? Where our y is whatever is in the spot of b. In this case, the constant is -1. So it's 0, -1. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Y equals -9x plus 5. So our slope in this case is -9. So it's a fall of 9. And again, because it's a whole number, it's over 1. So our run is going to be 1 in this case. Our y-intercept, always 0 in the x spot. And then our constant right here of 5 goes in the y spot. Okay, I don't know why 1, 2, and then 3 is over here for whatever reason. Y equals 5. Okay, so remember, this is a horizontal line. Y equals 5. Well, what is my slope? The slope is the coefficient of the variable, but I don't see a variable in here. So let's think about this graph for a second. If we have, here's our line, y equals 5. No matter what I put in for x, for the input, I'm going to get an output of 5. That means that what this equation is before it was simplified is going to be y equals 0x plus 5. So that my x isn't going to matter. It's going to be canceled out by being multiplied by 0. So what is the slope in this case? Slope is 0. So there is no slope, or m equals 0. Anytime you have a horizontal line, there is no slope. There is no incline to that mountain. Remember, a positive slope is going up a mountain. A negative slope is going down a mountain. So when you have a horizontal plane, a flat thing, then there is no slope, no mountain. You're going up or down. Okay. So y equals 2/7 over x. In this case, our coefficient of the variable, remember, is our m, or our slope. So m equals 2/7. So this has a rise of 2 and a run of 7. So we're going to go, if we have 2 points, or if we start with 1 point, we're going to go up 2 and then over 7 until we get to our new point. Okay, so that is, oh, I didn't mean to clear it all. Let's see. That's all right. Y equal, oh, nope, not Y. M equals 2/7. So then we need to find our y-intercept. Well, I know y-intercept is going to be an ordered pair. And I know since I'm looking for the y, my x is going to be 0. And the thing that goes in the y spot is whatever the constant is. Be sure to include the sign because we have y equals mx plus b. Because of this plus sign right here, you're going to include whatever sign is here. If it's a positive, it's a positive number. If it's negative, you're going to have a negative number here. Okay. All right. So jumping over here to 5, y equals x. Well, what's the coefficient of x here? The coefficient is an implied number 1. So m equals 1. It's going to be a rise of 1 and a run of 1. 1 over 1 is 1. Well, what's our y-intercept? Well, remember, our y-intercept is whatever's added to that variable, the plus b that we have over here, right? Well, what can we add to this that's going to not change our equation at all? Well, if I add 1 to it, that would change it. X plus 1 is different than just x. But I could add 0 to it and it wouldn't change it at all. So my y-intercept, I have an x. I know it's an ordered pair and I know 0 goes in my x spot because I'm looking for the y-intercept. So what's going to go in my y spot? Well, it's another 0. So the y-intercept of y equals x is 0, 0. All right. So this last one over here, x equals 3. This is a vertical line. There is no slope on this. It's an infinite slope. And y equals 3 is not a function. There is also no y-intercept because it's going up and down to infinity at x equals 3. So here you have that same information. And this one right here, y equals 5, it has a special name, a constant function. This one is not a function, no y-intercept and no slope. Okay. All right, so linear equation slope-intercept form. This is how we're going to use this format to graph. So this makes it very simple to graph. The first thing you have to do is you're going to graph the y-intercept. And remember, the y-intercept is an ordered pair. And since we're looking for the y-intercept, our x is going to be 0, and our y is going to be this constant right here, a positive 3. So let's go ahead and graph the y-intercept of 0, 3. There you go. I've got a red dot here, so you can see the point 0, 3. Then the next thing we want to do is follow the slope. The slope, remember, is 2. It says it right here. Oops. And that's going to mean 2 over 1. So a rise of 2 and a run of 1. So I've got in green here an arrow showing me my rise. I went up 2 spots. And so that is my rise. My run is, both of these are positive. Since they're positive, it moves upward and to the right. If you were to have a negative slope, you would go downward and to the right, because the only thing that's negative would be the number that's on the top. The bottom number is usually always going to be positive when you're given a slope, because it's going to be given to you in its simplified form. So after you've gone the appropriate amount up and over, the appropriate rise and run, you're going to find your second point. And so this is a point of 1, 5. Let's go ahead and mark that point and we can get rid of our movements that we did. And anytime you're graphing a line, you only need 2 points to graph it. Now, a parabola needs 3 points and other things need whatever. But if you're graphing a straight line, all you need are 2 points. And so we're set. All we have to do is draw a line to go through these. Now, when you draw a line on your own, not using a computer, but on your paper, you want to put arrows at both ends of the line, because remember from geometry, it continues on forever and ever in both directions. That's what makes it a line. Only a line segment has endpoints. All right, so this goes on forever and ever in both of these directions as it passes through the 2 points that we graphed. So that's pretty easy to graph from the slope-intercept form. Now, the second type of equation that I wanted to go over is the point slope form. Now, this one again it looks more complicated than it is. It's actually pretty easy. And so what we have is we're going to have the slope, which we already know to be m. And then remember, we have two parts of a single point. A point is an ordered form, an ordered pair, excuse me. So you have x1 and y1. So if you have a point and you have the slope, you can just create this equation. Or if you have this equation, you can use it to help you to graph. You can help find if you don't have the intercept, if you're given 2 points, you can find the slope and you can find a point and come up with the equation. You can use this to graph it as well. So here we have point slope form, and we have this equation that's written in point slope form. So we can already identify pretty easily what our m is. Oh, well, I actually have you doing it the other way around. We're going to identify what our first point is, our x1 and our y1. So if you notice, one thing I want you to notice, the y1 and the x1, in this case, both have a subtraction sign in front of it. Whereas when we had y equals mx plus b, we kept whatever sign the b was because it had a plus in front of it. But in this case, we have some subtraction signs. And if you remember, subtraction just means opposite. It just means do the opposite of it. It's going to go, when you're adding, you go to the right on the number line. If you're subtracting, you go the opposite way. You go to the left. So you're going to find the opposite of the x1 and the y1 numbers that you see there. So here we have a -5. So down here, in my equation here, or my ordered pair, I have a +5, okay? And here I have a +1, but I need the opposite of that. So I have a -1. So the first thing you're going to do is identify your first point. And you do that by taking the opposite of the number that's in the x1 spot and the opposite of the number that's in the y1 spot. So our 0.51 we're going to go ahead and graph that. And you have that here, 5, -1, as that red point right there. Now you need to find the slope, because remember, we have to have 2 points in order to graph a line. So in order to find the second point, we're going to utilize our slope, because that's easily identified in this. And remember, m is our slope. So m is -2. Our slope is negative. That means we're going to be going down the mountain, right? -2, this is over 1. So -2/1. So it's a rise, well, really more of a fall of 2 and a run of 1. So let's look at that on the graph. A fall of 2 means we're going to go down vertically. So we're going to, in the green arrow, you see we went down 2 places. And now we've got a run of +1. So that's going to move to the right 1. So that gives us our second point, which is 6, -3, right? Get rid of those marks. Now we see our 2 points here, and we can just draw the line that connects them, making sure when it's on your paper that you draw the line with arrows on the end. And that is how you're going to utilize both of these equations. Sometimes you'll be given some written information saying, what is the equation of a line that passes through point? And it'll give you, the numbers, the ordered pair of the point with a slope of, and so then you just need to take that and build your equation. But we're going to get into that in a little bit. So I'll see you next lesson.